Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Bothered. Thank you so much for listening or watching. We are a video podcast. As I keep telling people, do I need to do that? I should look at my stats to see if you're watching or listening. Either way, I'm here. You're here. Oh, I'm so grateful. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Goodbye. Keep listening. Hello, it's me, Julie Kim. Welcome to Bothered, my little podcast about being bothered. Every week I share short stories.
Living like this, I might lose it.
They're mostly real situations that have happened to me. You wouldn't believe some of them. Or maybe you would. Maybe you can relate.
Living like this, I might lose it.
This week's episode might be a really short one, although sometimes when I say that, I end up ranting so much and it ends up being a long one. So I don't know how long this podcast is going to be. Probably less than 15 minutes. This is something that just happened. And August 2026. I was in Granville Island, which I love. It is like a Vancouver thing to do, whether you live here or you're visiting. Granville Island with my friend and her child. They were visiting from Toronto, and we were in the kids market, which is a beautiful and super fucking expensive place. There's an activity center upstairs and a little bit of like a cafeteria where they sell hot dogs and things like that, and clothing and shoe stores, all of that kind of stuff. Really amazing place. And what I was doing in this kids market this past weekend is how I spend 80% of the time in that market, and also as a parent, and that was waiting. I was waiting for my child and this other child to get out of the bathroom, and they were taking too long. They were doing some shenanigans. I don't know. They were changing out of their swimsuits, farting around. And I was sitting on a bench and just looking around. And down the hall, there was this store full of novelties. And I saw a child walk out of the store attached to another child because she was pulling her hair. It was a taller child pulling the hair of a shorter child, and just pulled her out of the store like that, brought her up against the wall in the hallway, and I saw her smack her head. And then I just watched. I watched in horror, but also watched because I couldn't look away. The aggressor child was standing facing and menacing the other smaller child, and the smaller child was facing my way, and at this point basically looking at me the whole time. I think because I was looking that way and looking so horrified, and I would imagine that the smaller child looking at me was embarrassed, because if I was that small, maybe she looked like 9 years old or something, I would be really embarrassed. I should know. All of us should know, all women and girls and boys and men should know, everybody should know that if somebody hits you, it's not something that you should be ashamed of, but it is embarrassing to be seen being attacked by somebody else in this way. So she was staring at me the whole time. And the older sibling, I assumed, was just looking at her and just totally menacing her. And I don't know what the hell happened before that. I don't really give a shit. This bigger kid was bullying the little kid. And at one point, and I mean like 30 seconds later, I watched as the big kid raised her arm and smacked the little kid on her forearm, but like with a closed fist and really hard. And without thinking about it for a second, I yelled down the hall. I said, "Hey!" And everybody turned around, including these two children. And the bigger kid looked at me, and I looked her straight in the eyes to make it super fucking clear that I was talking to her. I didn't plan any of this. All I said was, "I don't care who your parents are. You do not hit." And then she made a face like, probably also embarrassed, and the little kid was also there, and they turned to each other, and then the big kid took the little kid around the corner. They were like at the end of the hall and around the corner, and mid-yell, my own child and my child's friend walked out of the bathroom like perfect fucking timing, although it's just occurring to me right now that maybe they came up because they heard me yelling. And I'm also now realizing that maybe yelling is a great way to get your kid to come out of the bathroom when you want to fucking leave the kids market. At any rate, I just sat there because I was enjoying sitting there. And my daughter and her friend, they walked down the hall and they saw the girls leave. And I think I had told them what happened, and they just went that way. And I assumed that my daughter and my daughter's friend went that way, probably led by my daughter because she's often the instigator, just to see what happened or where those girls went, or to generally inquire of like the situation, which was fine. Like I didn't think anything of it. And then after a minute, I was like, well, we should go, and we also should see where our children are. And we turned the corner to see that my child was now talking to these two other children, and my child's friend was just standing there. She's a little bit more passive, but she was totally like in the conversation. And I watched as my child, with her arms crossed, was kind of interrogating and having like a bit of a conversation. And I saw her body language is kind of like this, like crossing her arms openly, like not scolding or whatever. Like the big kid is way bigger. In fact, the kid that was hit is bigger than my kid, but she was right in there crossing her arms. And then also at some time, like taking one of her hands and gesturing as she talked, kind of looking like she was giving a lesson or asking about what was going on. And I was watching this, not really knowing what to do, because I also I was done with the situation. Like I had yelled at this small child. It's not my child. I did my part, and I wasn't going to go and like double down, you know? I didn't see a parent there. And a minute after I saw my kid talking to these kids, like still talking to these kids, a man walked into frame. He was a tall man. He was a tall Asian man. I should mention that every single one of these kids I mentioned was Asian, which has like not a lot to do with it, except that when I started walking closer, like to kind of signal to my child, hey, let's get the fuck out of here. I heard the man ask his daughters in Korean. Now, I can understand Korean pretty well. Not a lot. I need subtitles to watch like my K-dramas and anything else on the internet. And sometimes when my parents and other family members are having full-on conversations, I understand basic Korean. And what he said to his daughters in basic Korean was just oh, what's going on? Not in a harsh way, because what they were doing, they were just talking in a circle, didn't look threatening, but it, you know, you would wonder if your kids are in a circle talking to other kids, what was going on. And I heard him say that. And then I was like, let's go over. I was going to whistle, but I don't know how to whistle. It's an insecurity of mine. I don't want to talk about it. So we all left, and that was it. That was the situation. And I asked my daughter, what were you saying? And she said, well, I just asked like what was going on and why she hit. And I said, well, what did they say? She said, well, the bigger one said the little one doesn't speak English. So the bigger one answered and said, well, that's my sister. And my daughter said that she said, well, you still shouldn't hit. And the bigger one said, okay. And I think that was the gist of the conversation. I created a Karen Jr., everybody. All right. That's what I did. And I can't even say that what I did was like Karening. Like I just yelled. I said, don't fucking hit. I didn't say fucking hit, but don't hit, because don't hit. That's what you should do. I think I got so triggered because what my friend said when she saw it happen, and she used to be a nurse, and she said, oh, she's learned that from home. And that's pretty much what I think a lot of us think of. You see a kid hitting, or you know of a kid hitting or being aggressive or saying like really mean things. It's like, you know, they learned it from somewhere. So that's what she said. And then what I thought in my head, not that I like tried to make this about me, but like that really triggered me, because when I was little, I got hit a lot, only by my mom, who's going to a nursing home. No, I'm just kidding, but really. And then I just had violence and physical hitting as like part of my fucking vocabulary. And I remember hitting my younger sibling also as if it was fucking normal. And you're not supposed to fucking do that. Like, what a horrible thing to do. What a horrible thing to make normal in your family and in your childhood. And I hated that this kid was hitting the other kid. And I hated it for the little kid especially, but I also felt bad for the big kid who obviously learned it from fucking somewhere and needs to make it go away. So that's what I did. I yelled at a stranger's child, and I don't have any follow-up here. I don't know who they are or where they live or if they were visiting or if they live down the street from me. I don't really give a shit. It was my first reaction to say something, and probably I wanted that kid to know that you can't fucking do that, and at least to be scared that if you do that, especially in public, someone's gonna fucking yell at you. And then their kid's going to follow you and reinforce the message, even though they're smaller than you, and teach you basic lessons like you shouldn't hit, because obviously someone at home isn't doing it. What would you do? You listening out there, would you have done what I did? Probably not. A lot of people would not do a lot of the things that I do, because I, to my husband's horror, don't have that receptor where you feel shame. Like, I could fall and drop everything that I'm carrying on the street, and 100 people could watch, and I'd just be like, yeah, I'm okay, and I would leave. I wouldn't turn red. Like, I don't know what happened. I mean, I obviously, when I was little, I would have been embarrassed and all that, but right now I don't care what any of you think, and I'd rather have a story than maintain my dignity walking down the street. What is my point? Would you have done this if you saw a kid hitting another kid, whether or not they seemed to be siblings, if they were that small, in a public space or anywhere else? Would you say something, whether you yelled like I did or not? Would you have stayed and talked to the father and said something? I thought about that, but I didn't. And I have to say, nobody else jumped in. There was a man and his daughter standing directly across from me when I yelled. And I did take a look to see what their reactions were. I was not looking for validation, and I did not give a shit if anybody would have said, hey, you don't yell at people who are not your kids. Nothing like that. That man just stood there like this. He heard me. His kid heard me. They didn't say anything, and good. Because I think I was justified in yelling at that kid. Somebody just needs to fucking yell at that kid and teach that kid not to hit. Anyways, I wonder what you would have done. Have you been in a similar situation? Tell me. I want to know. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Bothered. Please like, subscribe, follow, and all of those things, and share with your friends. I would love if you did that. And what else? Gosh, I hope you're enjoying your summer. Please write to me about your bothered stories or reactions to mine. I'll read everything and reply to everything until I get too famous. But until then, it's bothered@juliekimcomedy.com. The blog format is at juliekimcomedy.com/podcast. Enjoy your week. We will be back next Wednesday. Ta-ta.
Living like this, I might lose it.